All right. Hi, everybody out there. Um, just want to do a little tech check. If someone who's either on the Facebook or the YouTube wants to just kind of check in to make sure that you're getting my audio, that would be fantastic. Um, see if I can arrange this so that I can see everyone's comments. Poor little laptop. Let's see. Hi, hi, hi. Let's see. Yeah, okay, cool. Thanks, Dina. We got the fancy lights going today. Uh-oh. Yeah. Yeah, going through, got the fancy lights going through a little ambiance. I got to compete with all the Zoomer kids. Our latest prop, a little glass shaped like a skull. Drinking a very nice white wine that is it's a blend, I think like a Chardonnay and Riesling. So I got that going for me. Um, so I just wanted to do a little check-in first, since we're gonna give everyone a few minutes to pop in. We usually start like 5 after or whatever, but whatever. We don't tell people that, right? Otherwise, no one shows up. um, how's everyone doing? So things have been a little on this end. Good classes on Saturday. Yay! Yeah, we had some fun classes. We got That's a big update, right? We're 2 weeks in a row we were able to meet for classes, and that was pretty awesome. We did a longsword class and a messer class. This weekend coming up, there's going to be a sword and buckler class and a messer class. Along with, we're still trying to think, because we got a few requests to still do uh, 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 some longsword stuff this weekend. So there's a couple of things that might be happening depending on the weather. Apparently, it's supposed to be rainy. If we can meet in person, we might have some time. For people who don't want to do messer, can probably do some like light sparring longswordy stuff, or I can give people drills to do um, aside. And during yeah, and then that evening, Rebecca and Patrick might be hosting a like a sparring Gekken kind of session in the evening in Central Park. Yeah, it was so great to see everybody, and it's really hard. I get emotional, want to cry, and want to hug everyone. And I wish wish the hugging was more possible. I miss everybody, and I love seeing everyone. Um, uh, let's see. Yeah, so folks are interested in Sword and Buckler. That's at 11 a.m. on Saturday, weather dependent. We'll make the call close, probably like Friday. The weather has been changing so radically lately that it's really hard to kind of um, uh, to make a call this far out. So we'll let everyone know as soon as possible. Um, all right, it's about 5 after. Only got a couple people in here, which is fine. Oh no, we got like 7 people in here. Gee whiz. Um, um, uh, so, what we're going to do? Let's see. See if there's any other announcement stuff. Yeah. So I know that like a lot of things have been kind of popping up on the Facebook about training and stuff. So I want to save any questions or concerns or stuff that you have for afterwards. I have a short presentation that I'm going to put together, a little presentation about building better practice sessions to help people kind of embrace practicing themselves. And that solo practice, it's an extension of the the mindful practice or deliberate practice stuff we've been talking about for months now, right? So put together a little something there. Um, and also, I made a worksheet for everyone. So as I ramble just a little bit about what we're going to be doing today, I'm going to send y'all a link in the Facebook and the on the YouTube. I'd put in on the Discord eventually too. Um, just a little. It is a it's a document. It's a PDF for you all to edit however you want, be it print out or printed or whatnot. This is a. Hold on, let me pull it up. I gotta go through all my folders. So many Hema folders. Here we go. Get link. Copy, share link. I love Google Drive so much. So what this is, it is a worksheet for helping you to build and record your own practice sessions. It is very similar to the one I personally use. In fact, this one is probably better than the one that I use because it's a little more structured. And I'll drop that in the Discord as well, just so it's everywhere. So this is what we're going to be talking about a little bit about today, and I'm really I'm excited to talk about this stuff because it's good. It's something that comes from a variety of different a number of places in my background because I come from a liberal arts background in film production and writing, and so there are things that we use to help us be better artists or really craftsperson. So I want to kind of share some of that stuff with y'all. It's things that I apply to my training that I've taken from other places and also my teachers. And I always want to make sure that when I have something cool and interesting that I learned from my teachers, I share it with all of you. So let's see where to begin. So again, we'll do more of a Q&A thing afterwards. Oh yeah, so that was the one thing. Before we get started, and I'll mention this again, after. I want to extend a invitation to everyone. Anyone who has any presentation or any interest in putting one together of about that is Hema or Hema adjacent, and some type of presentation, be it about Hema directly or medieval culture or anything along those lines, I want to invite you onto this AMA. We've had a couple different people show up, including Tristan and Kat, to talk about different aspects of kind of their, be it about like Tristan, either answering your questions as our Meisterlehrer or offering his kind of perspective on mindful practice. Kat came on to talk about the article that she wrote about practice habits. And it doesn't have to be about practice. I know I've been talking with Rebecca Glass about a presentation she frequently gives at some HEMA events and some other folks as well. And I'd be really excited to have you all on the slot on a Tuesday, like the 7 o'clock-ish slot. We can either do a live stream so people can do an interactive Q&A, or we can do a pre-recorded thing and do a digital Q&A. So that's something I want to open up an invitation. I know we've been trying to pressure Leanne into giving us a little bit of a medieval perspective kind of session. So yeah, I just want to extend that to everyone who has either something they've been researching or something they've been compiling or just hey, and I'm not even going to say just, and even if it is a unique look at something that it reminds me I should reach out to Patrick Paglin because I know he has a class on how to use Wiktenauer. I think that this would be a great place for that. So yeah, I want to extend that out there and tell if you have suggestions, either let me know or send people my way because I'd love to include them. Other stuff. Yeah, Leanne, I didn't mean to single you out. I know like the schedule is bananas. I gotta bust everyone's chops a little bit. um, so yeah, um, um, so yeah, so anyway, so that invitation's out there. Well, we'll do a little wrap up Q&A towards the end of this. But so let me just kind of share my screen here, because I think that how do we want to do this? Sorry, let me find the button, cause video. Um, let's see. Sorry, folks. Still learning this software. Okay. I think. Maybe. Yes, maybe. Yes, no, maybe. All right. Well, let's see if this wants to work or not. All right. So I'm assuming. All right. So you should be seeing now a slide for building better practice sessions. Can everyone still hear me? Okay. Okay. So now that I've popped in, let's see what. Let's begin. Okay. Good. We still got audio. Good. 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 Thank you. So. Let us talk a little bit about practice, building better practice sessions. So the first thing I want to do, we've talked about kind of deliberate practice before in the past, and it is certainly something that I've written some articles about. A lot of people have written articles about, and it's certainly nothing new. We've done a lot of this. We've talked about this a lot, and so I don't want to repeat myself too much. But I want to take a quick look at to kind of remind ourselves, what does deliberate practice mean? So deliberate practice is practice that requires focused attention and is conducted with the specific goal of improving performance. So that gives us kind of a baseline of what we're trying to achieve here, right? We're trying to make sure that when we're practicing, we actually have something distinctly in mind that we're aiming for, right? So, sorry. And also, deliberate practice is associated with deep work. Add echo to my voice there, right? Deep work, which involves studying for focused chunks of time without distractions. We live in a very overly connected world, and we live also in a world that, for some reason, fetishizes multitasking, and we all know that is bad. Okay, multitasking really. Multitasking really only is helpful. Multitasking isn't super helpful. It frequently actually gets in the way of accomplishing things that we want to accomplish, right? If our mind is thinking about 3 or 4 different things at once, we can't really focus on the task at hand. So even if a task at hand requires a physical labor, right, a repetitive physical action, we are still not going to be able to completely focus our attention on that physical action, right? It's going to, there have been a lot of OSHA-related studies and things like that. Like when we multitask, that's when more accidents happen. Because again, even if we are attempting to do something very simple, our minds can wander. Our focus is drawn in too many different places at once, right? So when we are practicing, it is very important to know that we have a specific goal, which is, in our case of practicing martial arts, improving performance, and that we're going to do it in chunks of time without distraction. Now, that's not saying that, like, checking your phone once in a while and letting people know that you're not dead isn't okay, but you're not going to be sitting there with your Google glasses on while doing your practice. So I want to quickly look at properties of deep work and deliberate practice. So some properties of these things are you have a specific, definable goal. So in this case, like we said, we talked about improvement, but what we're not talking about is, oh, I just want to be a better fencer. Okay, well, you have to break it down a little more than that. Like, what the heck does that mean, right? You have to have a definable goal. I want to be better at Oberhau. Okay, good. Now you can practice Oberhau, right? So specific, definable goal, a way to measure that goal, feedback, dedicated time, and of course, patience. And so I've written I have a whole article up about this, and I've done a talk about it before. These are all elements of like what we're looking for. So the way I want to carry these forward is I want to talk a little bit about how we'll be like using these things in how do we take these concepts and make a practice out of them, right? Because when we're making practice, it is really difficult because we both must be thinking macroscopically and microscopically, and all of these components. I think it's actually that way. All of these components are part of your goal, right? A part of the objective of practice. But these are again the properties of what are going to make a good one. So, let's get into building your own practice session or practice sessions. I've dropped that link for the worksheet in the so check that out. You're going to see a little format. I'm not going to pull it up on a screen just yet, but feel free to kind of follow along with it. So, in building our own practice sessions, of course, there's a lot of reasons why we want to do this, right? Part of which is and by building, let me go back just a little bit. By building your own practice session, what I'm specifically defining this as is you are creating, you are taking a chunk of time to do some deep work, right? With a specific, deliberate practice of a series of things. It is a laundry list, shopping list, checklist, however you want to refer to it as. It is a list of things that you are going to do in that practice session. Much like how our classes are structured with, like, you do warm-ups, you do practice, cuts, practice thrusts, a technique, and some application theory, and then sparring. There are specific bullet points that have to be hit within all that format so you can practice certain things, right? So that's what I'm talking about. I'm referring to building a practice session. Okay. So, why do we want to do this? I don't have the fancy transitions here. I apologize for that. But so why build a practice session? First of all, you're more likely to start. I know for me personally, if I am just by taking that ambiguous nature of the practice session, like, oh, I have to practice. There's a certain anxiety to me, or at least with me personally, when dealing with things such as just like these amorphous things, very wide tasks. Again, because that's not the objective here. We're looking to improve certain skills. So by narrowing something down and having this list, you're more likely to start. You have a roadmap, right? Having a schedule of activities combats attention drift, which it happens while we're practicing. Again, like, oh, I wonder if anyone texted me while I've been away, or I just any of those little thoughts that start creeping in. I personally have a really, really hard time concentrating in. My thoughts kind of come in forms of like these thought clouds. So so concentration can be a challenge for me. So being able to structure my time and structure my objectives are very helpful for me in order to focus, focus my intent and focus my education. Also, it prevents task fixation. This is something that is a big thing in practice. You'll be practicing even if you have a nice laundry list of things. You'll begin like, hey, I'm doing a really great right Oberhau today. And you just practice the hell out of right Oberhau because you're having a good time, because you're getting that sword win, you're getting that all the right feedback, and you're feeling really good about it. And so you just end up practicing that for your 45 minutes. Your alarm goes off, and it's like, oh, dang, now oh, well, now I got to go back to class, or I got to go back to work, or I got to go make breakfast for the family or something. Like, all of a sudden you realize that even though you wanted to practice a bunch of things, um, you didn't, you didn't, you fixated too much on one task and didn't stick to the schedule. In addition, I am also really more actually guilty of on the other side. I will practice everything on the schedule, and if I'm not timing out or doing some type of frequency check on what I'm doing, I tend to overly fixate on the things I am doing incorrectly. This is a life problem, but also in practice, I tend to fixate on the things that I'm doing incorrectly, and I will do them over and over and over again, attempting to fix them, attempting to fix them, attempting to fix them. And so by building a practice session, it allows, with a fixed amount of time or sequences, it helps us kind of combat that. Also, finally, last but not least, building a practice session enables mindful tracking of our work time, our work over time. It can be really difficult over the course of one practice session to see what you've gained, because a lot of times fixing something, such as edge alignment on my Oberhau, or for me right now, it's actually edge alignment on my middle Hau from the right to the left. Over time, over the course of one session, it might not be able to gauge that change. More likely than not, if you're going to maybe even, you're going to feel really good about something that maybe you've overworked at the sacrifice of other things, but you never gave yourself. You're not tracking yourself, so you forgot to study Unterhau, and also it overall, it'll allow you to see that kind of longer timeline of what you are and what are not practicing on, so like, oh, on Monday I was really frustrated with Oberhau, but by Wednesday I'm like, oh, okay, this sucks less now. I feel a little better. You can look at the whole week or the month or the year, through a catalog or a log of your own work, right? So, I want to take a quick look at the qualities of a good practice session. What is something when we're going to make a practice session or a series of practice sessions, what is helpful or what we should be looking to do? So, I think the first one is be practical. It needs to be intentionally designed. It needs to include foundational and challenging elements. A practice session needs to involve reflection and evolution. So, let me back up a little bit. So these are all the qualities what I believe make up a good practice session. And what's really difficult about this is that it can feel very amorphous, but once you start drilling down, you'll see how all these ideas help feed kind of the greater help inform all of the formation of the molding of the session. So first needs to be practical. All right, and that kind of falls into two categories: time/schedule and location. See, got my little emojis with the time and the calendar, or the map. Sorry. See, I'm trying to be cool. I'm trying to be hip. Anyway, so practical considerations are time and schedule and location. In terms of time and schedule, we need to ask ourselves these questions, right? Where in my schedule do I have time to practice? If I don't have time, what am I willing to give up to make that time? And how long is the time slot I have available for practice? This is going to inform a lot, right? This is like the foundational beginning questions of like, when am I going to practice? And it involves a lot of self-honesty. One of the more difficult parts of being someone who works in the arts or professional artist, it feels weird to say that, but I'll just say it. Working as a professional artist is the fact that a lot of these things involve a lot of solo work for long periods of time that is isolating you from other people because it has to be deep involved work. And it's always have to ask myself these questions. If this thing that I am doing is important to me, be it art or some form of fencing or Budo or anything, right? We have to make sure that there is time in our schedule. And so the first phase of that is opening up that calendar, be it in a digital format or a physical calendar book, um, and take a look at your schedule and say, and just go through and make a list of all the times that are just available. It doesn't even have to be like a practical time slot, right? If there's 15 minutes between lunch and when I have to, the end of lunch and when I have to be at like my next location or something, I write it down, not because it's probably going to turn out to be a practice slot, but it's an opportunity for something, right? And we'll get more into those opportunities later. And so then it comes down to difficult questions, right? The really, really difficult questions. Again, if this is something that I want to do in this like outside time, if I want to improve in a particular way and make that time, I have to say, what is my current schedule? What do I need how much of that do I need to give up, right? And then it's about making tough choices. Sometimes it means, for myself, it means that I don't get to paint every day like I want to, right? I get to paint probably every other day or maybe like 3 days a week. And because I have other projects going on, be it Hema or film-related, et cetera, or sometimes it's just the day job. All right, I'm working 60 hours this week. Okay, I got to figure out how to squeeze these things in. So it becomes really difficult, and that's when we have to ask ourselves some really difficult questions about what our value systems are. And that brings us to how long is the time slot available for practice. So, and that's going to affect how many things you can cram into your time slot. I personally like to have a different series of I do have this is a different number of like practice session pods, depending on how much time I have. 15 minutes, half hour, 60 minutes, 90 minutes, right? And I have an idea of what I can kind of go over in that time in a meaningful way. Because that's going to, again, that time slot is going to affect how much stuff you can cram in there and for how long you can practice each thing. Now, the second set of practical considerations, as we've all been learning, particularly in the COVID era, is location. This is a big one. Where am I going to practice? What are the physical limitations of that location? And what is the schedule like for that location? All things we have to think about because it's going to inform what can I do. I cannot practice longsword in my apartment. I just can't. The ceilings are just not high enough. I can do messer practice, which is great. I can do weighted trainer practice. Great. I can do budo practice. Great. But longsword, it's too long. Can't do it. I don't want to. It's not even about scratching my ceiling. It's the fact it won't fit. And so my alternate practice option is a public park right now, which has its own limitations. Schedule, like I got to do it during the day. I probably don't want to do it during certain peak hours. And then physical limitations, I'm probably not going to be dragging my sharp or my sharp longsword to do practice cuts there. Definitely not bringing my sharp sword to go to practice cuts. I don't even feel comfortable bringing my blunt steel or aluminum iaito sometimes. So again, and also like, what is my travel time to that park and how does that factor into the questions above, right? It's all part of it, but it's all about looking at this data and making a plan, okay? And choosing that option of like, I want to practice, even if it's 15 minutes a day, every day, I'm going to do something, and then boom, make that list. All right. So next, we have to be a good practice session should be intentionally designed. Now, this is a little bit what I was talking about with that kind of shopping list of that shopping list of items, right? We want to make sure that when we are designing our practice, we are actually designing something that's going to be a, intentional practice session. Our form, like I said, is a little different than my personal one, the form I sent you, but it basically is the same thing. You want to make sure that you are choosing things that you want to work on or need to work on, more about that towards the end, But essentially, this is what my little log looks like. This is, of course, a facsimile of handwritten stuff because it's easier for me to take handwritten notes and then maybe type them later if anyway. So essentially, what we're going to do. So let's zoom in here. So, like for instance, I'm going to choose to do something like practice cuts. There are 7 cuts that I practice, and I'm going to practice them 10 times each. Intentional design, right? And something I get a little more into in the article that I'm writing that I'll post soon, is the idea of like when you're intentionally designing these things, is that you want to kind of build them up, right? Like just think of how we do class. We have warm-ups, we have very basic practice cuts, and then we kind of build into more complicated techniques until we do free play, right? Yeah. So, and then after we know the things that we want to do, we need to have, beyond that, part of that intentional design is also giving ourselves a level of critique. Like, am I providing enough power generation for that cut? How is my edge alignment? Am I doing my footwork properly? And so what I do is I create questions for myself. And I think this is, for me, this is the easiest way to do it. As I'm doing this intentional design and this bullet point, this laundry list, I'm kind of writing down the qualities of what those things, the qualities of what make those things good, or what makes a good, like in this case, practice cut, and then ask myself in the form of a question, Go Jeopardy style, right? So that way I'm forced to respond to myself, right? And that kind of brings us to this next part. We want to include foundational and challenging elements. Now, in thinking about what to include, it's important to remember how interconnected everything we do is, right? To improve the higher order functions, you must not only build a strong foundation, you have to maintain it. So the first point, it is impossible to do a good Oberhau if you have a bad Vom-Tag, or if you have bad edge alignment, or if you have bad footwork, or if you have bad grip. If you have a bad footwork, bad grip, and bad stance and posture, right, you're not going to be able to do a good Oberhau. And so it is important, and this is why I get really probably more picky when we do practice cuts and practice thrusts about the details, right? Hey, it's easier for me to see, but it's also the time when we're practicing it, right? We're starting to build those muscle memories, and we want to make sure all our foundational things are sewn into everything that we do, right? It's something that that is something we're going to do from day one of our martial arts training until they lower us into the ground or throw us in the trash, like that is it is literally like we learn to improve that for our entire martial arts career. And secondly, to improve the higher order functions, you must not only build a strong foundation, you have to maintain it. It is one thing to say, hey, I did an amazing Zwerchhau today, or I perfected these 4 Krumpau plays today. This is freaking awesome. Great. But if now you are only focusing on practicing those higher order plays or higher order techniques, your lower order or your foundational functional foundational materials, you're not maintaining them, right? Without that full infrastructure, things start crumbling. You can maybe you get lucky and you continue to do a really good, say, Krumpau sequence, like the Krumpau pair technique. You can do that great. But once you start trying to apply the spontaneity of free play, if you don't have those foundations that help make up that greater dance of the paired technique, you're gonna fail during when that's really pressure tested, right? So it's always important, no matter what level you're operating at, to always include foundational stuff. So that way, by improving the foundation, by keeping the foundation strong, you support everything above it, right? Make the foundations practice about... so this is really more of a recommendation from me. I try to make foundations about a third of the schedule. That's how important I think it is. And that includes, and that's just beyond warm-ups and cool-down type stuff. It's really like, I want to make sure that there's always footwork training and that there's basic stuff training. And we also don't want practice sessions to evolve into a dull, unengaging series of mindless actions. That's not mindful practice, right? We want to, if we're just sitting there, going into the position, dropping the sword, going into the position, drop the sword, you're not getting anything out of that. Sure, you might be technically following through with the actions, but are you really understanding something more about your Oberhaus? Are you really paying attention to your edge alignment? Are you paying attention to your grip? Nah, you're just doing the thing because you're supposed to do the thing. Okay, I guess. Not really. Not okay, actually. So one thing that we do have to do is that is on all of us to bring a level of excitement to our practice and interest to our practice. But it also means that we should be challenging ourselves to include things that are higher order, to include things that are actually probably beyond what we normally think we know, because that way it gives us something to work on. It's a puzzle to work out. It's a cool thing to explore. I personally am one of those people that I just want to solve the problem. I want to, like, if you give me something that I don't understand, and especially with martial arts, I'm not naturally good at moving my body in new ways. So I have to try extra hard to kind of unlock it and train my body. I can intentionally do this now, in a very specific way. So. So again, yeah. Anyway, it makes you have to find a way to make practice interesting and engaging for yourself. Otherwise, you're going to get bored and you're not going to get anything out of your practice sessions. Or worse, you're not going to show up to practice. And you know what? I actually couldn't tell you which is worse: not practicing or practicing with like no intent or mindfulness at all. All right, and then also, I cannot stress this enough. And it's something we are working really, really, really hard at doing, and we've worked over the last couple years, at least during my classes, to build in time for stretching at the beginning, and now we're really pushing to also include stretching at the end of the session. Nothing. I'm talking about, and we're talking about this because we're talking about the whole kind of structure of a practice session. You're gonna hurt yourself. I know a lot of younger people out there, and I say that like I'm old. I'm not. I'm only 37, so it's not like I'm ancient. But like, you're gonna get hurt regardless of your age if you start if you don't start adding these types of things in, right? It prepares your body for the trauma you're about to put on it, and it also cools your body down and relaxes your body after the trauma. A lot of injuries come from not stretching properly. A lot of times when you're like, oh, I really feel that my calves the next day, it's because you didn't properly stretch, didn't properly hydrate. I should probably add hydration to this. Make sure to schedule water breaks. I'm sometimes bad at that. I apologize. But like stretching and hydration should be a part of the schedule. And you want to make sure to include this all in the schedule, so you can get through everything, right? Let's move on. All your practice sessions should involve reflection and evolution, right? So by reflection, I mean, keeping a log helps you keep track of what you've been doing. Yes, we all like to think we have computer brains, but we don't. Life is complicated and crazy, so it's really good to keep a log of everything, especially when you're learning new things or working through new things, just so you can kind of see. The log should encourage you to reflect on your session. That's why I format mine in with questions, right? I have to kind of think about, how did I feel about practice? What did I actually do during practice? Because those are two different things. How you feel about the actions you were doing, and I have to respond to those. The log should allow you to judge the quality of that practice session. Yes. And the way that part of that reflection isn't just like, oh, I felt really good about my middle how today. It's like, but now we're going to go a little bit beyond that and say, yes, my edge alignment was mostly okay. 3 out of 5 times I got sword wind. Some back to the idea of deliberate training. It's giving us a metric. I sometimes hate metrics, but they are important, right? Uh, but you give yourself a metric and you can kind of record it here. The log can help guide you towards integrating more advanced topics of study. You can maybe be looking through your logs and and think like, wow, I've been doing a lot of middle how. Maybe I need to do more advanced stuff, or maybe I need to, or hey, I got to a really good point with my middle how. I need to do maybe a cutting series that involves middle how to pressure test it, right? All right. So log, I really highly recommend the log. All right. Now, this brings me to one of my final thoughts on all of this. A quick note on practice versus play. They're very different things, and this kind of I alluded to this a little earlier, and it has to do with the idea of doing things because you like doing them, and then doing things because you have to do them to improve. There's a big difference. Let's dive in. All right. I cannot emphasize enough. Free sparring is not mindful, deliberate practice. Working only on the easy thing is not mindful, deliberate practice. Only practicing the tasks you feel like are not mindful, deliberate practice. You know, the cliched way of saying it is you have to eat your vegetables before you can have dessert. I love vegetables more than I like most desserts, so that analogy doesn't work for me. But the core idea of what we're getting at here is that having fun sparring is yes, it is a way to practice, to dive into some of like the free practice, and it is pressure testing some skills. But it is not a metric, right? It is not a way to dive in and see how your middle how is doing, or how your footwork, your passing footwork is doing, unless you have something set up with your sparring partner. That's not what we're talking about here, all right? We have, and it's very easy to fall into practicing something you like, oh, I really love this paired technique. I'm going to practice the heck out of it. Very, very easy to fall into that realm, right? And doing the same thing over and over again is good for learning that one thing, but it's not cohesively going to teach you anything. It is not going to, I think a really good musical analogy, actually, I think Kat kind of alluded to it here a little bit, is the idea of like, if all I do when I'm learning to play my ukulele or guitar or whatever you're learning to play, is if you only go and you try to play a song that you like, that's great. That's play. You get to play a song. You get to enjoy the process of doing the thing. But what you're not doing is like, how do I play these notes? How do I practice my timing? How do I practice my moving my hands around the fret, etc., etc., etc. The complicated fundamentals, or the not so complex, the foundational materials like we were talking about before. And same thing applies to martial arts training or fencing training. Really making sure that you are practicing, that you are practicing beyond just free play, right? It's not just one, especially in fencing. It's not just about practicing. It's not just about winning. It's about winning well. And showing your skills and your abilities as well, not just, oh, I stabbed them real good. Oh, but but my footwork's off, so I keep failing to withdraw. But I still beat him on the point spread. Cool, you're still getting hit, right? So yeah, again, only working on the easy thing, free sparring, and practicing what you feel like, not mindful, deliberate practice. Because you're robbing yourself in that case of a lot of things. You're robbing yourself of discipline. You're robbing yourself of the work you did for putting your practice sheet together. So, all right, yeah. So there'll be an article up on longestmaster.com about all of this, including this worksheet that I have sent here, or I've posted here. So now what I want to kind of do is just, I've been babbling enough. I always want to kind of turn outward now and see if there are any questions, comments, or concerns that anyone has about this presentation, or in general, just free floor for the next 15 minutes or so. If not, we'll call it early, because I am out of material for the evening. So yeah, so does anyone have any questions about anything we just discussed, or is there anything I can elaborate more on? Yeah, slideshow, emojis. That's how you reach the kids. I also will make the slideshow available to folks uh, if they are interested in it. Yep, that's a very good point. Kat mentions putting in the work during deliberate practice allows you to play later in a more skillful way. Yeah, dang straight. Leanne says, just despair as I realize I both fail to practice enough and slip into mindless movement when I do practice. Well, I mean, don't beat yourself up about it. It can be, it is a very, habits are difficult to form. And also, I think one of the things that we have not learned very much in the past is about how to practice outside of class, right? It's always very much been left to our own devices. And, that's why I think, we can start again. That's why we're all here, right? To kind of support each other in these endeavors of finding a way to practice. So I believe in you, Leanne. You can do it. We're all we're all accountable for each other. Yeah. Yeah, Dina says it's easy to get into repetitive motion and not be deliberate. Yeah, I agree. Just because, especially when we're in that mindset of like, oh, I know Oberhow, you just kind of fall into doing the thing, right? Josh says, at the beginning, you suggested having measurable goals, but it seems like the ways we have to assess how well we're doing are more gut check type things. How do you recommend we assess? I mentioned in my article that self-checking is really hard, especially when you're doing solo practice. Again, as Joe mentioned, so hating yourself can be mildly useful in how you set up your own practice. Yes, not give take away the benefit of the doubt for yourself. Yes, my self-loathing actually comes in great as an asset during these types of things. But yeah, I think that like there's certain things that we do. I think everyone who does Hema, at least here, has a level of self-loathing that will be a great asset to them. I love you all. But like it's difficult because with Budo we have Tamashigiri that kind of help us gauge how our cuts are in general doing. But again, I think we have to go back to what makes these fundamental things work. And really ask ourselves, test our knowledge. Like, all right, so good footwork, toes towards enemy. Okay, now I'm going to do some footwork drills, and I'm just going to do. Even if you're doing, I'm going to do Oberhow with like 10 Oberhow with forward steps each time because I got space in every direction. But this time, what you might do is slot it and say like, you know what? This week during my 10 forward Oberhows, I'm only going to focus on what my feet and my knees are doing, and I'm going to do my best to figure out if they are doing the thing they're supposed to be doing. And then again, you got to gut check. It's really hard. Sometimes you can have accountability buddies if you can find someone to watch you practice or videotape yourself practice with your phone or your computer or a camcorder or something, and then play it back for yourself or others. That is a way of approaching it. I record myself frequently and immediately delete the footage after I analyze it. Also, another way you can do it is actually part of the way I've most improved over the last couple of years is asking someone, hey, I know you know this, but do you mind if I explain this to you? Can I explain like 5 ways to help make this better and kind of help teach it to you? Teaching is a really good way of helping learn something. And one of the things I've been really trying to bring to the school, or all of us, our club, or our collectiveness, our collective, is the idea of like we should all be helping teach each other within boundaries. Don't get me wrong. there's a time and place for it, but uh, ways to help with newer students and all that sort of thing. So yeah, that's another avenue of self-check. But yeah, gut check is really hard. It just is. And sometimes, again, it is really nice to have um, it is very nice to have something that is like a video camera there to record yourself, so that you can watch it later and be embarrassed about every motion you make. I often set my camera for slow mo, and then I see every mistake, and it's really embarrassing and great. And then I learn a lot from it. um, Let's see. Hema is so very class impaired focus. It's hard to engage and practice on your own. Yes, and that's why I'm here, and that's the whole point of this kind of these mindful practice focus that we've been doing since the era of COVID, to help everyone develop better self-practice and practice together when we can, and build skills and tools for when we can't practice together. Yeah. Any other questions, comments, or war stories about this? I also struggle with strongly preferring padded swords for free play. I actually, I'm gonna be really honest and say that I don't think that's I don't think that's a horrible struggle. I am becoming increasingly, yeah, I'm also super overgear. I am also becoming increasingly convinced that Federschwats are not appropriately designed for the work that for what we do, in both practicing and also in sparring, fencing, etc. I think they are inappropriately weighted and inflexible, and the fact that more of them don't break while we do what we do with them is scary to me. And I have some ideas for how to test some of these things. I'm horrified as someone who's received one very serious concussion during my time. I mean, like, padded swords are no joke, but at the same time, I think that they lend themselves to more appropriate energy levels than the steel does. And so I don't think that there's anything wrong, because and let me put it this way: the foundations that you're using when you use a padded sword or gekken, or dugekken, or whatever you want to call it, those foundations are generally the same. The fencing is generally the same. In fact, in my opinion, you have like probably better bind work happening on padded the friction is higher on these padded swords than the steel. That's just my opinion. I know a lot of people out there disagree with me, and I'll probably get plenty of hate mail for this, which is great. I can't wait for it. But I actually encourage mostly only doing padded sword work. And because of the nature of Federschwats and how fencing or most fighting tournaments go. And that's, that happiness brews culture. I'm not meaning the kink shame, but I think that there is an element of that needs to, the idea of, hey, look at my bruise, I'm so happy right now, is needs to be readjusted. That may or may not change for me. I mean, there's nothing wrong with wearing a heavier sweatshirt while we gekken. In fact, one of my favorite ways to do gekken when I'm not in hakama and gi, sweatpants and a sweatshirt keeps the. I mean, I do mostly try to do it in uniform, but the sweatshirt really does keep the rug burn off. Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. I enjoy I enjoy the adrenaline rush of getting beat up on, and just as much as the next person. But I think it's more of the fencing experience that does it for me. And like, I'd be interested to see if there's like roller derby culture that encourages like, oh, look at my awesome bruise. Meanwhile, you're crying on the inside, but the smiling and pointing at like, your arm that's going to take 6 months to heal, with a horrible green bruise on it. Yeah, that's. I have many opinions of these things, especially being a small fighter. who's encountered a lot of things. um, I use steel swords, but do so more low or no for slow sports instead of free fence. Yes, I think that's fine. Like I think that's the better use for them. I think blunts would be like thinner blunts would probably be good for that too. But yeah, I agree about the low no gear kind of approach. Um, I still think that Gek and Shroud get better bind, but I also understand the desire to use steel. I in no way encourage people to use sharps, even though they bind the best way. It is not legal. Don't do it. I feel like I have hit a saturation point with injuries. It was fine for a while, but I kind of want to break from it. Yeah, it's traumatic. This is the thing. Injury is trauma. Whether you are enjoying it or not, it's a level of trauma, right? It's a strain on the body. It's a strain on the brain, and I think we internalize it more a lot. I like those battle hoodies a lot for padded kick. Yeah, I mean, they never quite fit. The battle hoodies never quite fit me correctly. They were always, even the extra small was still like huge on me. But yeah, a battle hoodie or something that was Spess makes a battle hoodie now apparently, or their own iteration of it. I'm throwing a sweatshirt with a wrist guard, like a wrist guard on my dominant wrist. Or frankly, I wear my hakama and gi mostly for Gekken because it is because I mostly use for that my my kikogi, like my kendo kikogi. I don't know if I'm putting those words in the right order or not. I apologize. Because it's a little thicker, provides a protection. But yeah, something of that magnitude. My fencing, my light fencing, my non-padded fencing jacket is actually great too, because it's has enough give to put like a little protection on my elbows and our wrists and gorget and fencing light fencing mask and go, and and yeah, I'm actually also interested to see how the Rattan does for light sparring. I think it's going to be a lot better, to be completely honest with you, but we'll find out. And the SCA has been using it for years because it was the safest thing they could do. I mean, yeah, single stick. Dina brings up a good point. You should see some single stick tournaments. Yeah, I remember that one long point where it's like, oh, Jesus Christ. But that they were using boxing rules where it was like, unless something really bad happened, they weren't stopping. So it was just like, hit, point. The rules were really weird. I'd be interested to see what it'd be like with if you use like actual tournament rules with it. Full intensity longsword because recovery time is way too much. Yeah. Again, why I want to try to use Rattan for things. I think the SCA has been on the right side of history, no pun intended, about a lot of that kind of the weapon construction and things. And I know a lot of people are going to disagree with me. I just think that based on the intent, how Hema is performed as this kind of MMA style thing, I just don't think that it's going to be. I just don't see it as this thing that's possible to continue in that using steel. We all saw what it does to football players. My poor brain. Huh. So it's just about 8 o'clock. Again, so so I want to kind of wrap things up. Want to just remind everyone to, if you get a chance, tip your teacher. I'm working for tips currently. A lot of stuff going on about training and things. If you check out longwestmaster.com, we have a schedule page where we're posting a whole bunch of stuff, including these AMAs and our virtual classes, but also how weekend classes are kind of shaking out. And I know that Kenny and Patrick are starting to host more like little sparring groups as well. So that's so all that stuff's going to get put up on our little schedule page for access. I highly encourage, especially for weekend sessions on Saturday, please sign. You have to sign up. We are doing this for a number of reasons. It's for us to catalog who's contact tracing issues for COVID-19, but also we have to control the size of the groups, and we have to know who's there, what they're doing. It's an insurance thing. It's a liability insurance thing, and also helping us do contact tracing in case of an emergency. It also helps us prepare for class, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah. And so again, so please check out our website, which has a lot of this info, which, again, longestmester.com. I still don't know how we were able to nab that. um, um, and yeah, so again, check out longestmester.com. Tip your teacher if you can. I just want to leave the floor. It's 8 o'clock now, and I know it's usually wrapping up. So I just want to leave the floor open for any last yeah, if you have any more questions, comments, or war stories, or concerns, or anything about anything that's been going on, because I know a lot of stuff's been floating around. Like I said on the Discord earlier, just in regards to other stuff, I want to just let me just pull it up so that way I'm not talking out of my butt. But just like, because I've been getting a lot of messages regarding the message that was made by Jay about NIFA. I just want to clarify for everyone that I don't have additional information regarding the recent NIFA announcements. Those interested in finding out more should contact Jay. Yeah, that's all I have to say about that. Yes, I've been in conversation with some folks, including Patrick McCaffrey, about what's next. Some really exciting stuff is happening, and I can't wait to share it with everyone. It's going to be super inclusive. It's going to be like super available, and it's going to help us work together as a community. And I'm just really looking forward to it, and working with everyone. And I just want to say, no matter what I end up doing in terms of Hema, I want to let everyone know, again, I want to be as inclusive as possible. People can train with other groups and still come to my classes. You can train with NIFA, Rogue, Martinez, with Academy, Liberty. There's so many really amazing options and diverse opinions out there in Hema, and I want to make sure that everyone knows that there's never going to be. I never want to put anyone in a position where they're going to feel awkward about having to choose something or choose a training space or location or whatnot. It's you're always welcome, no matter where your primary, if we're your primary group or secondary group, you're always welcome. As long as you don't violate our code of conduct, which is that's gonna be a conversation topic maybe for next week. Is codes of conduct and why they're important. But yeah. So that's just that. I just wanted to clarify some of that stuff, and just to also let everyone know that these AMAs are going to continue. The Friday virtual classes are going to continue, and the in-person classes on Saturdays, as long as weather and health, COVID stuff continues to be okay, we'll be doing them. There might be changes eventually. We might have to go back to a model where people are paying for classes, but that's how we can become a sustainable club or institution or whatever we end up being. I don't want to. It's not. I don't know what that's going to look like, but I can promise, any changes that are happening, we're going to be 100% transparent about it. We want to make sure that we'll give everyone ample enough notification and notice about those changes, so it doesn't feel like it's just lightning happening out of nowhere and just coming down on anyone. I think what we're doing is a hobby. It should be fun and inclusive, and we should enjoy it, and it shouldn't be stressful. And and it's going to be it's important for you to maintain those things and build a great training environment for everybody. And so with that, I'm going to say good night. Thank you all for listening to me ramble on. I hope you got something out of today's class. Again, I'll be lurking around the Discord. I might even put on a movie and maybe around 9 o'clock or so, because I'm working on a movie pitch myself. I'm pitching a documentary. Yes. Also glitter, lots of glitter for all our practices. We have glitter we can put in cocktails now, so the after-class drinking can now involve sparkly wine and sparkly vodka. But yeah, so I'm currently working. For those who don't know, I'm currently working on pitching a documentary, and it's a lot of work. I think, but I'm very excited about the topic. I can't get into it too much, and it's also why I've been avoiding some social media. But Anyway, enough about me. Thank you for joining me. If I put a movie on later, I hope that you'll all hang out and have a great night, and hit me up on the Discord. As I said, I'll be lurking there with any questions, comments, or concerns. And be safe, wear a mask, stop the spread, be good to each other, be excellent to each other, and have a great night. Bye.